So, other than the search for life and the technological advances associated with actually colonizing Mars, what other objectives would the first manned mission to Mars actually have?
The first human mission to Mars will, in addition to searching for life, be searching for resources. We'll want to find, for instance, mineral deposits that are exploitable. We'll want to find concentrated supplies of water. I mean, we know that there's lots of places we can get 4, 5, 6% water out of the soil, but it'd be better if we found a subsurface deposit of water ice. It'd be even better if we found a geothermally heated supply of liquid water underground, which would both give us a lot of water and also even power. The number 4 source of power on the Earth is actually geothermal power. That is, first is combustion, then there's nuclear power, then there's hydroelectric power. Number 4 is geothermal, way ahead of wind or solar. And on Mars, wind and solar both have difficulties that are greater than they face here on Earth. But geothermal is definitely a possibility on Mars. We can see that Mars has been volcanically active in essentially the geologic present. And so there's got to be geothermal heat underground on Mars. We'll want to find it because then we can develop multi-megawatt power sources based on an indigenous resource. The first missions, the scientific goals will be high on the agenda, but also prospecting. And we'll want to find the resources, and then that will be the information we use to determine when we put our first settlement on Mars.
So I guess part and parcel with that is these Mars analog environments that the Mars Society is setting up in the deserts of Utah and the Arctic Circle. Can you tell us a little bit more about what research is actually going on at these places, what people are trying to find out?
Yeah, we have 2 Mars analog research stations. One in the Arctic, the Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station, and the other in the American desert in Utah, the Mars Desert Research Station, MDRS. And we're going to have an active field season at MDRS this year, and I understand we're going to have a New Zealand crew there.
Yes, the Kiwi crew.
That's right, Kiwi crew. All right, and Haritina, you'll be glad to know we have the telescopes operational again. What the crews typically do is we take a crew of usually 6 people, and we send them out there into the desert and task them to conduct a sustained program of field exploration, generally in geology or microbiology or both, while operating under as many Mars mission type constraints as we can impose within the limits of our resources. So, for example, they can't go outside and explore without wearing the simulated spacesuits. And they have to do all their field exploration that way. And that impairs their mobility, agility, situation awareness, and so forth. And they got to do their field exploration. And they got to do their lab work inside the hab and attend to the repair of their own equipment and report and interact with the mission support group and take care of the chores of daily life and get along with each other. And by doing this, we try to find out what's likely to work on Mars and what isn't, what's going to be useful, what technologies will be useful, what kind of people will be most useful, what skill sets, what character types, what character mixes, what way of organizing the crew. Should the crew be led from within, i.e. the crew itself have its own commander that directs its activity, or should it be run by mission control? We have found the former to be the case, and that's why we don't even call our mission control anymore. We call it mission support. We think the Mars mission has to be led from the front. How do you organize it? Do you have people on watches, like on a submarine, where the people are on different shifts in their activity, or is everybody on the same shift? Such as is more typically the case in daily life in our society. And in fact, we find the latter to be the case. You're better off having everyone on the same schedule so they can work together and supplement each other. And, what technologies, what field mobility systems, a big ground rover the size of a school bus, or little ATVs that you can ride on in your spacesuit. We find the latter to be more useful by far, and so on. So it's like a dress rehearsal. And if you've ever done theater, dress rehearsals are very useful in trying to figure out how to make the show work. And, well, these are dress rehearsals for Mars, and we're learning about how to make that show work.
This year I had the chance to go to the Mars Desert Research Station in Utah, and I saw so many names of people that have been previously stationed in there. For how long has the station been operating?
Yes, our first crew at the desert station was in 2002. This will actually be our 11th year of operation at the desert station. We've had over 100 crews at the desert station of around 6 people each, so that's over 600 people. We've also had 11 crews at the Arctic station.
it was fantastic to see all these people that were there previously united in one goal, the exploration of Mars, and that was so inspiring, and that made it such a unique experience being there. But I liked every single bit about the Mars Desert Research Station. What's your favorite part?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the experience itself, especially if you're part of a good crew and you have the camaraderie and the esprit de corps of being part of a team like that. Beyond that, I really like the night sky out there.
Good choice. Good choice. You're also leading Pioneer Astronautics, a hands-on research and development company, which is inventing all these new technologies needed to colonize somewhere like Mars. Are there any benefits to people here on the Earth from an exploration of Mars?
I think the largest benefit in terms of the short term, here and now, on Earth, of having such a program is in education. And let me explain where I see the strongest benefit there. It has to do with morale. Napoleon said that in war, morale is to material as 10 is to 1. And it's the same in education. Before I became an engineer, I was a teacher. And I taught in a variety of schools of enormously varying quality. And one thing I discovered was this, is that anybody can teach kids who want to learn and nobody can teach kids who don't want to learn. It doesn't matter whether you've got advanced projection equipment or you're using chalk. What matters is whether the kids are excited about learning. The Humans to Mars program would be an invitation to adventure to every young person in every country that chose to participate. Learn your science and you can be a pioneer of new worlds. And out of that invitation to adventure, out of that challenge, because youth loves adventure. That's what youth is about. Spirit of youth is the spirit of adventure. Out of that challenge, we and every country that participates would get millions, scientists, engineers, inventors, doctors, medical researchers, technological entrepreneurs, exactly the kind of people that move humanity forward. It is intellectual capital. Is the basis of the wealth of any society and nothing else. Germany, Japan bombed flat in World War II. 10, 15 years later, they were among the most prosperous nations in the world because they had intellectual capital. You have other countries that you could go there right now. You could give every person $1 million and 10 years from now, they'd all be living in total poverty. So this is what it's about. And so this is an enormous engine for the creation of intellectual capital. The United States benefited enormously from Apollo. You know, NASA likes to cite particular inventions that were made during Apollo, computers and Teflon and so forth. And some of this is even true, but it's not the real benefit we got from Apollo. The real benefit we got from Apollo was that it doubled our number of science graduates at every level, high school, college, PhD. And, you know, who were the 40-year-old technological entrepreneurs, the geeks who created Silicon Valley in the 1990s? They were the 10 and 12-year-old little boy scientists making rocket fuel in the basement in the 1960s. And that's who they were. And I happen to have been one of those people. And I'm a little unusual among them in that I actually ended up doing rockets. But most of them went into, well, in every technological field imaginable. And collectively, they created the modern age. So benefiting the United States, but in fact, the entire world.
Your vision for humanity is just inspiring and wonderful on so many levels. But what can individual people do to help humankind get to Mars as soon as possible?
Spread the vision. Ideas make history. You know, manifestly when we, if we can influence the political class, but even when we don't influence the political class. I mean, for instance, you take Elon Musk, okay, who's now doing SpaceX. And there's a variety of these other billionaires who are running around trying to create space initiatives. They're not doing it for the money, okay? You know, Musk might even end up making money off of SpaceX. He's very good at making money, and he could probably make money doing anything that he tries. But he could make a lot more money doing other internet startups or, buying and selling real estate or stock options or whatever if he chose to be doing that. He's doing it, and the rest of them are doing it because they believe in the vision. Now, where'd they get that vision? They got the vision because people who believe in that vision have been spreading it. starting with the science fiction authors, Arthur Clarke and Heinlein, and then people like me and the Mars Society, and everyone who spreads the vision in any way they can, because this is catching. It's not about the church, it's about the faith. People do things based on what they believe and what they believe to be important. And people want to do something important with their lives. That's, in fact, why there's a Mars Society and other space societies interested in expanding humanity to space, but you don't really see an Antarctica Society, even though, as it has been pointed out, it'd be much easier to colonize Antarctica than Mars. But everyone understands that it wouldn't fundamentally change human history in any significant way for human beings to colonize Antarctica. It would be just one other place on the Earth. It wouldn't really be any significant step for humanity. But establishing us as a multi-planet species will. So the Mars Society, we address this in every way we can. One is simply by spreading the vision, which may in fact be ultimately our most important work, even though it's the least tangible in terms of understanding its results. Others are political work, where we try to interest the political class in various countries to embrace the challenge of Mars exploration. And I might add that as small a country as New Zealand is, New Zealand could afford to do a robotic probe to Mars. The Pathfinder probe that went to Mars and the Mars Global Surveyor spacecraft, each of those programs was $150 million. Okay, that is the cost of building a shopping mall. And I understand you have shopping malls in New Zealand. It is entirely within the means of New Zealand or Australia or any other medium-sized country to join in this enterprise and express their own creativity through independent initiatives, or they could group with others to do it. Every country, virtually, certainly any country with some technological capability, can participate in this. So we try to convince the political class in particular to embrace it. Then we do projects of our own, of which the most significant to date have been the Mars Desert and Arctic research stations, which both spread the vision and gain valuable data as to how this can be done. So these are all the sorts of things that people can do.
I believe that we saw an increase around the world in the last year for these activities that people and organizations are taking to prepare for the exploration of Mars. What's your take on this?
Well, there's stuff going on, and there's certainly great interest in Mars, but I think we're at a critical juncture. I mean, particularly in the United States, we have this massive budget crisis, and unless the program develops a clear vision of what it's trying to do, it could be torn apart. I think it's very important that while there has been a lot of progress in the past 16 years in the robotic program in particular, that this thing really get a much clearer idea, clearer goals, and a clearer commitment to these goals, because if we're just kind of drifting around, we may be drifting in the face of a tsunami.
Because the colonization of Mars is such a big, tantalizing expedition, I think many of us see it as kind of a logical consequence of humankind's own curiosity. But do you think that if we don't make the necessary investments in time and energy now, that there's a real risk that humankind won't ever make it to Mars?
I think there's significant risk. Civilizations don't always succeed. Success is not inevitable, at least not inevitable in any particular time or experience. There's a lot of different factors at work. Western civilization today, some of which are very healthy and some of which, in my view, are not. It's not completely clear how this is going to play out. And these have to do not only even with political philosophies and economic situations, but even a changed personal ethic. Let me give you an example, okay? I mean, because some of these other things, the economy, the politics, that's sort of obvious. And then, there's China and there's this, and what about, what if there's a war? And so I think our society has become safety obsessed and pleasure obsessed. It almost goes back to the ancient Roman distinction between Stoic and Epicurean philosophies. People say to me, well, how do you know the first crew to Mars is going to be safe? Can you guarantee that it's going to be safe? And can we let them go if we don't know that they're going to be safe? As if people don't have the right to take risks on their own behalf, and that others must decide for them because they know better than they do.